So,
It's a graphic of some sort.
we are ready to go. If PCC is ready, we are ready.
Hey, Marty.
Act as if we're live, so no talking until the mayor opens the meeting.
Sarah, I reached his voicemail, but his voicemail is full.
Okay, I'll see if I receive a text back. Oh, he says he acknowledged. He says they're ready on their end to go live.
Okay, our screen is now just came on live. Now we're back to the holding pattern, the holding card. But all the squares were there for a minute.
Okay, we are ready to go. If PC TV can hear us, we are ready to go.
Okay, all our screens are on there now.
Okay, is there audio?
I have it muted. Let me see.
Okay.
Yeah, now there's audio. Yes.
Great. Okay, thank you. I think I will open the City of Pacifica City Council meeting of April 13th, Monday, Can I have a call to order? A roll call.
Councilmember O'Neill,
Here.
Councilmember Beer,
Here.
Councilmember Vaterlaus,
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Beckmeyer,
Here.
Mayor Martin.
Here. And I would like to have a pledge of allegiance. I will lead the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the
To the
flag
flag
of
of
the
the United States of America and
and
to
to the
the
republic for which it
which it
stands,
stands,
one
one
nation,
nation under God,
under God, indivisible, with liberty and
liberty and
justice
justice
for all.
for all.
Thank you. Okay, so before we get started, there are a few notes, housekeeping that I have to read for everyone that is out there in the ether. This meeting will be conducted pursuant to the provisions of the Governor's Executive Order N-25-20 and N-39-20, which suspends certain requirements of the Brown Act and pursuant to the orders of the Health Officer of San Mateo County dated March 16th, 2020 and March 31st, 2020, as this meeting is necessary so that the city can conduct necessary business and is permitted under the orders as an essential governmental function. So while this meeting is not physically open, city council members, city attorney, and city staff essential to this meeting will be video teleconferencing into the meeting, and there will be no physical location open to the public. The public can observe the meeting via cable or live stream while sheltering at home. So viewing remotely and from home, the meeting can be observed on live local TV, channel 26, or online at www.cityofpacifica.org/live stream. Public comments. Public comments can be submitted during the meeting by emailing comments to publiccomment@ci.pacifica.ca.us. That is publiccomment@ci.pacifica.ca.us. You can also find this information online on our agenda this evening. For the city council meeting, public comments may be made only on items that are on the agenda. And please indicate in the email subject line the agenda item number or note oral communications in the email content provided, and provide your full name, meeting date, agenda item number, or oral communications, and specify whether you would like your comment read into the record during the meeting. Comments should be limited to 350 words and comply with the 3-minute time limitation. The total duration of all public comments for each agenda item, including oral communications, will be limited to 30 minutes or subject to the mayor's discretion. Your entire electronic comment may not be read into the record due to the time limitations imposed, and comments expressing similar positions may be summarized or abridged to provide for greater number of individual comments, but your written comments will become part of the record and will be available for public inspection. And I just wanted to inform everyone that if we are to have any issues, the format of this meeting can be altered or the meeting can be canceled if needed, if we run into any technical issues. You can check the status of the meeting by visiting the city's website at www.cityofpacifica.org for any updates. So with that, I will move on to special presentations. And this evening, I would like to introduce Roseanne Faust, the President and CEO of San Mateo County Economic Development Association, or SAMCEDA. Roseanne is the past chair of the Redwood City Planning Commission, as well as the past chair of the board of San Mateo County Chamber of Commerce. Roseanne was elected to City of Redwood City Council in 2003, 2007, and 2011, where she served as mayor from 2007 to 2009, and vice mayor 2005 and 2007, and 2013, 2015. Tonight, she's giving a presentation on how the County of San Mateo is responding and providing support during the COVID-19 shelter-in-place order. Welcome, Roseanne, and personally, I'd like to thank you. You've done an excellent job attending all these meetings and putting together so much information in such a short period of time. Thank you for being here and thank you for all you're doing. Welcome.
Thank you, Mayor Martin. I can't thank you and the team, your council colleagues, as well as your city manager, your economic development, your city clerk, your city attorney. Your entire staff has just been such a pleasure to work with and so supportive of all the things that Samsita has been trying to do to assist the business community in San Mateo County. So I really wanted you all to know that. They're just an absolute pleasure. So thank you. So I'd like to move in. I want to thank Sarah Coffey, for your city clerk, Ms. Coffey, for having the presentation all ready to go. I have it up on my screen as well, so I can follow along. But if we just turn to slide number 2. So Samsita, in early March, we actually pivoted very quickly. We're an organization that's been around since 1953, providing public policy work, economic research, and championing the business community at all levels throughout San Mateo County. And in early March, we were attached to the County of San Mateo's Emergency Operations Center as the business lead to really support our business community through this challenging and difficult time. And so we started building very quickly at samsita.org a research page full of information. And let me be clear, the information that we place on our site is fully vetted. If we cannot track it back to a credible source, we do not post it. We actually were instrumental with our county district attorney because there are a number of scams actually from some of our small businesses on the coast side that through Facebook and other forms of social media received solicitations. If you enter your business information, you will receive $500. And they alerted us to that, and we in turn alerted the DA, and they put out several public service announcements on scam, a press release, and so we're really monitoring that. We have a scam section on our website, but we moved from all the general COVID information, which we still have, and created a business economic impact survey that over 33 businesses in the city of Pacifica have filled out. A simple 15 question. We've sent the first tranche of information to your city manager and his team, so you could quickly see what businesses were impacted and how we could best support them. We also work with the County of San Mateo in developing the San Mateo County Strong Fund, the Silicon Valley Community Foundation. When all of COVID-19 started and the shelter in place went into effect on March 16th in San Mateo County, the Community Foundation set up 10 different county funds. San Mateo County wanted to have its own fund that would use the back office of the Community Foundation to be able to support 3 buckets of need: individuals and families, nonprofits, and small business. And the County of San Mateo, the Board of Supervisors, seeded that fund with $3 million in Measure K tax dollars. And since that point, we've been working with all of our elected community, our large businesses, high net worth individuals, anyone actually willing and able to help support the fund. And then we worked with TBWBH, which is on contract with the County of San Mateo, and we've been facilitating the website for San Mateo County Strong, as well as the individual PSAs that have been out there. And then we've engaged with Chambers of Commerce, the Convention and Visitor Bureau, various downtown business corridor trade associations, and other stakeholders. We'll be having another chamber call later this week to kind of keep all of our chambers with the information they need to best support their businesses. If we move to slide number 3, just kind of moving along. So the business resource page. What we did initially was create something called the Business Continuity Action Plan. And we've done 3 iterations of it. A 4th will come out either tomorrow or Wednesday with updated links. But it was designed to help businesses. When a business or an individual is going through this type of crises and challenging situation, they're not necessarily always thinking about what kind of makes the most sense. What have I looked at? So this Business Continuity Action Plan has questions to try to level set folks in thinking about, have you contacted your bank? Have you contacted your mortgage lender? Have you contacted your landlord? Have you looked at your suppliers? Have you been able to obtain a business line of credit? So kind of to set the stage, because the county and all of you and all of us are focused first on health and safety, our healthcare system to make sure that's shored up, and then the business piece of it, because the economy will reopen, and it's when and how. We also work with the Chamber of Commerce and the county-led Zone Haven, which is a geo mapping. It was for fire services, but then a gentleman in the city of San Mateo had been doing a Google Doc of all the restaurants and businesses that were open. And so we quickly turned that Google Doc over to Zone Haven so they could plug in all the resources. We're also linked on our samcita.org webpage to all the cities, the 20 cities and the county, as well as all the chambers of commerce. So as your information gets updated, it's automatically the links. If you look on the right side of the page, we have the city and town links, the chamber links. We also set up jobs for hire, which we gathered the information from NOVA, which is our workforce investment board for San Mateo County and the 8 cities in Santa Clara County, as well as Onward, California. So we could aggregate all the open job opportunities. The volunteer opportunities linked to the county volunteer page. They have about 1,700 volunteers that they've been deploying to the various agencies that are needed. I mentioned city and town links, Chamber of Commerce, and then education resources. So we've been tied to the County Office of Education, which in turn ties out to our 23 different school districts. We've had 28,668 page views since March 17th. So the page is getting quite a bit of traction out there. Plus, we put out an e-newsletter daily. It's not a reminder of the day that we're in shelter in place. It's actually the most current information that we have available. Today, both PayPal and QuickBooks Intuit announced that they would be managing part of the SBA, Small Business Administration's Paycheck Protection Program. So that is really current news. We wanted to get that out there. We're going to dive deeper into it and again, put out more information. So moving on to our next slide, which I believe is number 4. This shows the Business Economic Impact Survey. We've received over 1,135 survey responses to date. As I mentioned before, the city of Pacifica, 33 responses. We sent out the first wave of the responses that we got in to the city. We will sort through it and analyze it again and then send it back out. So you know firsthand which of your businesses have filled it out. If there's others, we are keeping the survey open for now. We have not shut it because it can provide useful information as we go into what I would call medium and long range planning. So then moving on to the next slide. The San Mateo County Strong Fund, which I went over it in a summary, but next week, next Tuesday at the Board of Supervisors meeting, we will bring forth the recommended online application portal system through the San Mateo Credit Union. So I want to step back for a moment. The Small Business Assistant Grant Funds could not be managed by the Silicon Valley Community Foundation because they're a 501c3. So doing grants from a 501c3 to a non-501c3 gets complicated by IRS standards. So we literally had to build from the ground up an ability to issue small business grants up to $10,000. The criteria will initially start as 1 to 10 full-time equivalent of employees and or under 2.5 million in gross receipts. They will have a business, we ask for a business license and or a form of documentation because the county of San Mateo and unincorporated areas, they do not have business licenses. So we had to find another mechanism that the credit union, the reason we chose the credit union and they really wanted to work with us is they have offices from Daly City to the coast side to East Palo Alto. So they cover a wide swath of territory and allow for a plug and play model. So the back end is being built. It'll go to the Board of Supervisors for approval, and then we want it to be launched on, I'm looking at my calendar, on April 22nd, on or before April 22nd. If it gets approved the morning of the 21st and we've tested it, and the credit union has been a tremendous partner. We've also reached out to elected officials throughout the county to help us raise additional dollars. You see the pledges to date on your screen. AT&T in for 20K. Our chambers of commerce, the ones throughout the county, pooled their funds and donated 4,000, which is wonderful. Franklin Templeton, 20,000. Gilead is $1 million. Google, 50,000. Heritage Bank, 3,000. So the Millbrae Community Foundation. There will also be a memo that will be sent to your city manager, your mayor, your council. Actually, hopefully tomorrow is the plan, and it encourages cities to consider a donation to the San Mateo County Strong Fund that is unrestricted dollars that could be used to make business grants in your municipality. So to use the platform through the credit union, but also consider, I know that cities right now are going through all of their budgeting and finance and what are the impacts of COVID-19? How is that going to impact city finances? So far, we have the city of Redwood City that has committed $300,000. As I'm on this call, the city of San Carlos is looking at between $100,000 and $400,000. The city of Burlingame at next week's council meeting is looking at somewhere in the tune of $400,000 to $500,000. And we are going to be very clear with communities. If you were to donate, the money goes to your community, your small businesses. So it's something to consider. We've received, so the last bullet, the pledges to date, we've actually received about $255,000 to the San Mateo County Strong Fund through the Community Foundation, through 560, I think, individual donors is the latest information. So we're just going to keep raising money because the need is going to far exceed the funds, but we're just going to keep raising money. So if we move on to the next slide, working with cities, chambers, I already mentioned this, different town halls that we've held. We're more than willing, as coming on to your council meeting this evening, as well as I'm going to join the Economic Development Committee for the city of Pacifica that has a meeting tomorrow at 6 to answer any additional questions that businesses may have. And then I'll just move on to the next slide. So the Business Continuity Action Plan, I mentioned that earlier. Third version, version 3. So we've done version 1, version 2.1, 2.2, and now we're going to version 3, either tomorrow, Tuesday, or Wednesday. So we make sure once we publish it, we send it out to all of you so you have it with the latest links and information available. If we move on to the next slide, so financial assistance. So I gave the Small Business Assistant Grant overview for the San Mateo County Strong Fund. We are also monitoring, and we know that there has been a tremendous amount of frustration with the SBA programs, both the Paycheck Protection Program and the Economic Injury Disaster Loan, EIDL. And I'm not gonna, I appreciate and understand the frustration. How we've been able to explain it to folks is the SBA is an excellent organization that has always worked in disasters in specific geographic locations, whether it's a tornado, an earthquake, a fire, a flood. It's not set up when it's a national situation. And so there is money for these programs out there. We're just trying to work with our congressional delegation and others to loosen the constriction of the tube of funding, is the best way I can say it, to try to deploy more funds across a wider variety of lenders. That's why we were so interested today when PayPal and Intuit decided that they wanted to get involved. And how that rolls out, we will keep you posted. As we get information, we try to get it out to all of you. We expect more assistance from the state. They are working on the EDD front, so the unemployment insurance, and then they also have the iBank and the California Capital Access. They've really been focused so much on the health and welfare and safety of our hospitals and our healthcare system, but we know more is coming from the state. And then we're tracking all the different grants that companies are putting forth. So Facebook has small business grants program. Salesforce launched last Wednesday their Salesforce Care small business grant. And then Verizon also has a small business recovery fund. So we're trying to track all of those as well. And then if we move on to the next, okay, that was questions. I tried to talk really quickly. I know you have a lot to cover in your agenda. So I just really want to say again, thank you for allowing Samsita to work with your team to really work to help your business community. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Roseanne. So I'm looking for raised hands. Looks like Councilmember O'Neill. You can.
Roseanne, I was watching and I read some articles about a problem where businesses that have business interruption insurance are being denied the claim. Is that happening here in San Mateo County? And if it is are you going to try to address it, or
yes,
any way it
actually,
can be fixed?
Yes, Councilmember O'Neill, we raised that issue about two and a half weeks ago because actually 3 weeks ago now, up the chain through our state legislators, because there is a caveat in the business interruption insurance that specifically calls out they are not going to pay in terms of a pandemic, or I'm not sure if I have the exact wording right, but we have asked our state legislators to see if it's possible to have that piece of the insurance change. We've also actually went to insurance brokers and said, is there a way that, what do we need to do to be able to get this fixed? So we're monitoring it. I don't have an answer for you right now, but we are working on it because frankly, I was pretty astonished. I'm like, oh my gosh, I know there's a lot of clauses in insurance. I'm not a broker, so I get that, but it is definitely something we are looking at.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Vargas.
Hi, I am on the 3 times a week meetings with the San Mateo, and I thank you for all of your work that you've done to support everybody. We talk about this almost every time, and I know you can't help, but the EDD has been denying self-employed claims. And so the self-employed people, independent contractors are being automatically denied because they can't handle the situation. So and I just wanted to bring this up in this forum, but what do you suggest for self-employed independent contractors? Thank you.
So that, and thank you, Councilmember Vadoslas. That is something that we have heard even before today's call, because I know it came up on our county call today. And we have, for lack of a better word, we have been pounding on our local legislators to figure out why they are being denied, because it clearly states in the information that has come out from the governor on down that self-employed and independent contractors are eligible for unemployment insurance. And that has been very clear. So we're having a hard time understanding why that message isn't translating through the system. So what I can tell you is that we are going to keep working on it until they are able to process those type of claims, because that's our commitment to you and to any independent business and independent contractor, self-employed.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Sue. Mayor Pro Tem Beckmeyer.
Hi, thanks so much, Roseanne, for all that you're doing. This is really helpful to us. And thanks so much for making time for us tomorrow night as well with the Economic Development Committee meeting. One of the questions that I have that has been coming up is, and you know, we talk about it at 3 times a week on these calls, what is our horizon? What is our, as we move out of this, you know, what is the length of time that businesses are likely to be closed? And that is the reason I'm mentioning that is because I'm wondering if you have guidance or suggestions for small businesses that are trying to figure out what to request in terms of an idle loan. And the Paycheck Protection Program is supposed to cover 2, or sometimes I read 2.5 months of payroll, but which 2.5 months? If we're going to be substantially closed down until the midsummer or longer, how would small business people work with those time horizons?
So Mayor Pro Tem Beckmeyer, so your questions are in line with what I have asked for direction from the SBA, because that question came up on both the town hall with Congresswoman Spear and Congresswoman Eshoo as to when you're applying for an EIDL loan, where do you kind of fit in to the process? Because it's supposed to be through June 30th, but if you think you might need the money in July and August, so we are trying to get an answer for that. I'm also on the county hired IEM, which is a disaster recovery, for lack of a better term, company that works on the 30, 60, 90-day plans for how we all come out of this. And there's 7 different subgroups that are a part of it that you've heard on the call. And Samsita will be participating actually tomorrow. I have the first calls on the economic recovery, financial impact, triggers for coming out of this. And then if a second wave was to happen, what would that entail? So I will have more information as to the long range planning, because this is critical. And I was on the phone today with basically someone that has several small like shopping centers, strip malls, and they were asking the same questions, because knowing from their tenant perspective, when will they reopen? How will this all work? And so more to come on that. I can't be more specific, but I can get you more information.
Really appreciate that. And I have one other question with regard to the San Mateo County Strong, the business grants that will be administered through San Mateo County Credit Union. I understand there are 2 primary criteria, and I always grab my pen when the second one is being mentioned. So I've got the piece about $2.5 million in gross receipts, but the first point I keep not getting. It's how many employees?
Sure. And this is Councilmember Byer?
No, this is Beckmeyer.
Beckmeyer, sorry. I'm trying to follow the boxes on the screen. Mayor Pro Tem Beckmeyer, so it's an either or. So it's 1 to 10 full-time equivalent employees and or under 2.5 million gross receipts.
Okay, great. Thanks so much.
And just so you know too, and I'm going to add in, some of the communities who would like to give to the fund, they may want to tweak some of the criteria. So some of the communities have said to us, well, what if we have a really engaged business that has 20, let me up it, 30 part-time employees, which would equal 15 full-time equivalents. Could we kind of loosen that criteria for our funds? And the credit union has assured us that in those kind of situations, they are absolutely willing to work with the various communities.
Great. Okay. Councilmember Mary Beer.
Hi, Roseanne. Thank you so much. No, I've been on the calls as well, and I feel so extremely informed by everything that you're doing. And it's just amazing. The work that you all are doing is amazing, and I thank you so much. It's been really comforting to be able to give information to our constituents who are they're full of fear, right? And so to be able to have the resources that you're providing, it's priceless. So thank you so much. You said we'll have an opportunity to encourage some other business owners to do the survey. Is that right?
Yes, absolutely. The survey is open, and I can resend the link to Ms. Coffey, the city clerk, city man, whoever you want me to send it to. I'm happy to send it.
Okay, thank you so much. And then you also said that you're engaging other council members in raising money, and I would love to be involved in that in any way that I can. So
awesome. We are happy to send packets of information.
great.
We know that all councils have a lot on their plate. And so we started with the Board of Supervisors, then we went to some folks that had asked. And so you're asking, so guess what? We'll be sending it.
Great. Thanks again so much.
Thank you, Councilmember Beer.
Thank you, Roseanne. We really appreciate your time, and also tomorrow night, thanks in advance. I know our Economic Development Committee is looking forward to the presentation as well. So thanks for your time, thanks for your patience, and keep charging hard. We're here for you. Thanks.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good night.
Good night. So we're going to move on to our consent calendar. I would like to know if there are any council members that wish to remove any items from the consent calendar. To do so, please raise your hand. Virtual hand. I don't see any hands raised. And then I will ask for a motion. Oh, I do see a hand raised. Councilmember Varlas.
I move to accept the consent calendar.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, so we have to vote as city clerk. We have to vote orally, correct?
Correct. So we'll be doing a roll call vote. As I speak the council member's name, please state your vote.
I did have a question on one item, number 4. It took me a while to get the right button.
Okay, sorry.
Okay, no, I know, I understand. It's a discussion I had with Kevin in regards to the Anza pump station. And I wanted to be sure to see if there was a consensus in council that this needs to be operating by December when weather's supposed to come, and be sure that it has to go to the Coastal Commission, that they don't run the design and the bidding and all that doesn't go consecutively, that we can see if we can get the Coastal Commission to have it run concurrently with the bidding process and everything else, and to try to expedite this, because if it needs to be ready in November when the rainy season starts, that's 6 months away. And then
Before we have a discussion, can we do a roll call vote on the consent calendar removing item 3 so we can have a discussion?
sure, that's okay with me.
Okay, I will amend my motion then to accept the consent calendar without item number 4.
3.
3.
I second.
Okay, Clerk Coffee?
Okay. For the consent calendar, removing item 3 and voting on all others. Councilmember O'Neill,
Yes.
Councilmember Beer,
Yes.
Councilmember Vaterlaus,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Beckmeyer,
Yes.
Mayor Martin,
Yes.
and that motion carries 5-0.
Great. Okay. So Mike, you were saying?
Yeah, it was just basically, I'm concerned that, we're well on our way to May, and that this will have to go to the Coastal Commission for approval, and that we can get this to be run concurrently to try to get the approval expedited through the Coastal Commission. So this is ready for the rainy season in November. Because it is 6 months away, and there's got to be some build time and everything else. Second is if we can have the design so that maybe a mural can go on it for decorative purposes. That's the only comments I wanted to make, and see if there was any, comments from other council members, or just that's it.
Okay. Deputy Director Lewis Sun has his hand raised, and I would love to have him say a few words. You're up.
Honorable Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, and City Council members, this is your Deputy Director of Public Works, Lewis Sun. To answer Councilmember O'Neill's question, Deputy Director Bautista and I, we've been working on this issue with Anza Pump Station, and we are working with the Coastal Commission and also trying to select an engineering firm concurrently. We also trying to put partial pump station back into service as well. So we're doing 3 things at the same time. So our goal is to at least get the pump station somewhat operational before the rainy season. but our goal is definitely to get the entire pump station back into service before the rainy season.
Okay, I have every confidence in you. I just wanted to make a note that it was a concern of mine, that's all.
Councilmember Vargas has her hand up.
No, I'm fine with that. Thank you.
Okay, great. And then just for the record, Deputy Director's son, you are not in council chambers. That is a photograph. Is that correct?
That's correct. It's just a virtual background.
Pretty cool. Thanks. I just didn't want any of the public thinking that you were there and they could join you.
All right, I make a motion that we approve the consent item number 4 or number 3.
Do I have a
Second.
second? Okay, Clerk Coffee.
For agenda item number 3, Councilmember O'Neill,
Yes.
Councilmember Beer,
Yes.
Councilmember Vaterlaus,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Beckmeyer,
Yes.
Mayor Martin,
Yes.
and that motion carries 5-0.
Great. Okay, so we are going to be moving on to oral communications. So oral communications is going to happen like this. Folks have already sent in a lot of emails. They will be read out loud by Clerk Coffee, up to 3 minutes. And clerk also has the legal right to consolidate any comments that are consistent with each other. If your comment goes over 3 minutes, it will be cut off. Comments could still come in, and we will periodically check with City Clerk. So with that, I'll hand it over to you, Sarah. Is that right?
Thank you, Mayor
Mayor
Martin.
Martin, if I could just chime in here very quickly, I just wanted to call to everyone's attention that there is a slight delay between the live, the video feed or the TV and what's happening here. So at the end of, after Ms. Coffey has gone through some of the public comments that have already been submitted, we just want to make sure to maybe pause for a minute to allow any delayed comments to come in. And that would be the protocol for any of the public comment periods tonight, just to allow an extra minute or 90 seconds in case any emails are delayed based on the video delay.
Okay, I will do that. I will check. We will wait a minute or so, and then I will close orals once I'm informed. Yes? Okay, I'll see you, Sarah.
Thank you, Mayor Martin. I will begin reading the oral communication public comments that have been received prior to the council meeting, and then we'll be checking in with Deputy City Clerk Brooks to see if any additional comments have been received during the meeting. The first comment is from Jim Sullivan. He states, with ongoing quarantine expansion, I wanted to add a possible item to consider. Spare the air day every day. Reducing or eliminating heating residents' homes with non-zero emission wood burning appliances. Lindemar District is subjected to a day and night blanket of high particulate laden blanket of smoke. Even with our windows closed tight, throats and eyes, burning is the norm. Implementing a clean air effort would be welcome as we hunker down at home. And he goes on to state, living on the shores of the Pacific should guarantee us a steady supply of fresh air. Here in suburbia, we share fences. Wood smoke is fine for rural areas where domiciles are well distanced from one another. Fresh air is even more important now that we are anchored in home for the duration of today's pandemic. Thanks for hearing me out. Kind regards, Jim. I received a comment from Maria Fastidio. Hello, I would like the mayor to read my comments out loud. My name is Maria Fastidio, and I own a townhome on Terra Nova with my family, which includes 2 young children and a dog. We moved in a little over 2 years ago, and what attracted us to this neighborhood is the sense of community. Every day you see families walking, people walking with their dogs, children walking to school, Little League, and the library. Allowing RVs in our neighborhood would rob our community of that. We do not know where these RV dwellers are from. Do you want to be responsible for any safety this imposes to any of the residents of this town or its children? Please think of the health and safety of our environment. Not that long ago, a RV parked in the shopping center and emptied out their waste. I don't want to see that in our neighborhood, and we shouldn't have to. Do you really think these RV people care about what they do to the neighborhood? Parking around Terra Nova can be hard. I work as a night shift pediatric registered nurse who commutes from Oakland. The last thing I want to do is have to look for parking and then step over someone's waste products. I want to park in front of my house and go to sleep. I please ask you to stop allowing vehicles greater than 6 feet to park on Terra Nova. I fear the worst if this will happen. There are too many kids and families' safety issues that you are playing if allowed to happen. Maria Fastidio. The next comment is from Sandra Herzl, and her subject is to limit the RVs, and she states the limit of 6 feet. A comment from Jordan Kessler. Hello, I am an avid mountain biker and I'm proud to call Pacifica home for the last 6 years and have only been riding within 5 miles of my house during this pandemic. In this shelter-in-place order, I have been monitoring the trails in McNeil Ranch State Park on the popular cycling app Strava. This week, the majority of cyclists are from out of county. Many are from San Francisco, but some are from as far away as Walnut Creek. I'm concerned about the lack of signage at the trailhead closing the trails to people greater than 5 miles away for the San Mateo County shelter-in-place order. Are there any plans to post adequate signage before it's required to close the trails to everyone, locals included? Thanks and stay safe, Jordan. This comment comes from Carolyn Jaramillo. Good evening, Mayor, Council, and staff. My name is Carolyn Jaramillo. I have been a Pacifica homeowner for 30 plus years. First, thanks to Council, the Resource Center, and all essential workers here in Pacifica for keeping us safe during this pandemic. Thanks also for all farm workers nationwide for continuing to work without protection and at great risk to ensure that we have food. I urge everyone to call on members of Congress to include those brave people who are excluded from the $2 trillion package in the next benefit package. Next, I would like to know if the City of Pacifica is seeking access to county and state funds to protect and house the homeless here in Pacifica. Are any efforts being made to see how many vacant motel/hotel rooms could be made available to house the homeless during the pandemic? Is there any effort being made to once again contact the owner of the RV park to see if some lots could be made available to people living in vehicles on the streets? There are now many vacant lots in that park. My last question, is there assurance that the permitted parking program proposed by the PRC will ever go into effect? I recall that Councilmember Beer agreed to support the oversized vehicle ordinance if there was a good faith agreement that a permitted parking program would also be approved. The oversized vehicle ordinance is now on the books. We need to care for all residents, no exceptions. And I really mean it when I say all of us are in this together. Thank you for your consideration. The next comment comes from Suzanne Moore. My name is Suzanne Moore, Pacifica resident from the Manor District. Thank you, Mayor, City Council, and staff for your efforts to both keep Pacifica safe during the COVID-19 health crisis and help Pacifica businesses in this economic downturn. COVID-19 has made it clear we are an interdependent community, and we truly are in this together. While we focus on ways to stabilize Pacifica at this time, we must recognize that helping our most vulnerable helps our community as a whole. The state and county remind us that our homeless are at a high risk for contracting COVID-19, resulting in serious illness and possible death. It is often local efforts that can make a difference. The Pacifica Resource Center is open for business to aid our vulnerable neighbors. For those who are able, we can contribute money to the Resource Center. They are no doubt experiencing greater need due to worker layoffs. The PRC is also able to accept donated restaurant gift cards to augment their food pantry and provide some variety. Here's a way to support our local restaurants and the Resource Center. The City Council lost an opportunity to delay the effective date of the Oversized Vehicle Ordinance. 1, until city staff presentation of details. 2, until recommendations from the Unhoused in Pacifica Task Force, including a suggested parking permit pilot. And 3, until face-to-face community input. In his recent statement, City Manager Kevin Woodhouse offered that implementation of the ordinance will not take immediate effect, but that does not negate the choice the city made to let the ordinance take effect rather than temporarily delay till a time when the public can meet council face to face. I ask council and staff to delay implementation of the ordinance until a parking permit program is in place, which will offer our vehicularly housed a pathway to stable housing. COVID-19 is a painful lesson. Housing is necessary for life and health for individuals, families, and our entire community. Thank you. This comment comes from Jeanette Borgo. I respectfully request all of you read Chris Morello's thread on Nextdoor and immediately take action to begin enforcement of the stay-at-home order issued by our county and state governments. At the very least, the city should begin issuing citations to vehicles in the problem areas in the city, i.e. beachgoers parking in residential neighborhoods and out of area people coming to hike on the quarry and other trails. It is imperative that you act immediately to protect the Pacifica residents who elected you and instruct the police to begin enforcement immediately. Thank you. Jeanette Borgo, Valamar. This comment comes from Todd Ewell, Crespi Drive, Pacifica City Council. I respectfully request that the entire Pacifica City Council read Chris Morello's thread on Nextdoor. The thread is entitled, "So Why is Pacifica the Only City Allowing Non-Residents to Come to Town to Serve?" Further, I request that the PCC, Pacifica City Council, take immediate action to enforce the stay-at-home order issued by state and local governments. Further underscored by Mayor Martin, i.e. stay within 5 miles of home. The Pacifica Police Department should begin inquiring of individuals where they are from and ask those from out of the area to return home. These individuals are out of quarantine compliance and endanger our residents and ultimately our fight against COVID-19. Locations include, but are not limited to, the following parking areas: Lindemar and Rockaway Surf areas, Higgins Road, Maury Point. It is imperative to act quickly to protect the Pacifica residents who elected you and direct the Pacifica Police Department to begin enforcement immediately. If we do not move, other health and government agencies will act for us. Best regards, Todd. And the same comments were submitted by Tracy Ewell, Crespi Drive. These comments were submitted by Linda Prasajny, President, Terra Nova Homeowners Association. RVs parked on Pacifica streets have already caused safety and sanitary deterioration. It will get much worse if council doesn't enact a total ban. RV owners with homes who store their RVs on the street for free need to move them to their backyards. Pacifica should keep constant pressure on the county to step up and provide facilities at a nominal cost. The vehicularly housed need parking with access to toilets and showers, counseling, and caseworkers. Start pushing the county now. Don't wait for remain in place to lift. Bike lane plans will take too long. That is a separate project that should not be tied to an RV ban. Pacifica doesn't have resources or real estate to provide lasting solutions for homelessness. Failure to take decisive action will make our town a magnet like SF, which lost Oracle Open World due partly to street conditions. It has gotten so bad. Members of City Council and well-meaning persons should not try tackling a problem that is far more than our town can take on, expecting residents of neighborhoods to accept the degradation of city streets, safety, security, and sanitary conditions. Please discuss the ban in tonight's meeting and commit to applying the ban to all city streets. The following comment was submitted by Roseanne Massimino. From Terra Nova Boulevard. Dear Mayor and Council members, this public comment will follow up my previous email to Mayor, Council members, and City Manager. I ask that Terra Nova Boulevard be included on the list of restricted streets for RV parking, where parking of vehicles over 6 feet is prohibited. While I have great empathy for the less fortunate, allowing RV parking on Terra Nova, particularly where there is no access to electricity and plumbing, is not the answer. Moving the homeless issue back in the valley is not going to fix this problem, but will only have negative consequences on our vibrant family community. With 2 schools, a public library, senior housing, daycare, place of worship, shopping center, and nearly 300 townhomes, with not enough parking for the residents there alone, it is unconscionable that a thought would be given to designate Terra Nova Boulevard for RV parking. In the midst of COVID-19, having a well thought out plan to control and or eliminate the extreme health and sanitation problems that come with moving the homeless on our streets should be first and foremost. This is not the answer. There are other options that actually make sense. The petition of hundreds of resident signatures, social media communications, and the dozens of communications directly sent to mayor, council members, and the city manager to include Terra Nova on the RV street ban list can't be ignored. Please do not ignore the people of the city of Pacifica that put their trust in you and believed that you cared about Pacifica and its citizens when you asked for their vote. Thank you, Roseanne Massimo. This comment was submitted by Julie Starobin. My name is Julie Starobin. I live in Pacific Manor. I was glad to read that the official date for the oversized vehicle ordinance has been postponed until September 1st at the earliest. But I would like to urge the council not to implement the ordinance until a safe parking permit program has been developed and started. I hope everyone is taking care of themselves and staying healthy. Thank you. This comment was sent by Anita M. Reese, Executive Director, Pacifica Resource Center. In light of the statewide shelter-in-place order, Pacifica Resource Center has focused on getting groceries out to families who need them, providing financial assistance for rent and mortgage, and maintaining basic services to our unhoused, including groceries, showers, and helping them access county homeless services. We have modified our office hours to Monday and Tuesday mornings until 12:30 p.m., Wednesday afternoon until 7 p.m., Thursday afternoon until 5 p.m., and regular hours on Friday, 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. We are available other hours by phone. Whenever possible, we are meeting with folks by phone, and when they have to come to the office, we are social distancing and sanitizing the office after visits. PRC is delivering groceries weekly. Our deliveries have grown from 60 the first week to over 230 this week. I want to thank the city staff for helping us get a permit for the use of a refrigerated storage container so we can store more groceries and get them out efficiently. I also want to thank our neighbors for bearing with us while we figured out how to best serve our community. And I want to thank Second Harvest of Silicon Valley for funding the storage unit and for increasing our deliveries of pre-boxed groceries for distribution. We have an online pre-application for anyone who needs financial assistance for rent, mortgage, or other critical needs due to COVID-19. Funds for financial assistance are primarily from SMC Strong and SF Chronicle Season of Sharing Fund. We are still working on ways to best support unhoused families and individuals in Pacifica and hope to implement some new strategies soon. To get the link for the pre-application or to sign up for grocery delivery, please contact PRC by phone at 738-7470 or by email at info@pacresourcecenter.org or by contacting us via our website, pacresourcecenter.org. This comment comes from Jewel Wally. The subject is medians. Is there a possibility to get the medians on Lindemar Boulevard groomed? They are a bit of embarrassment for the city. Is there a landscaping program that would let an intern fix them up? And that's the end of the comments that I've received. I'll now check in with Deputy City Clerk Brooks to see if any additional comments have come in for oral communications.
You?
Good evening, council members, Mayor Martin. There have been no comments received so far in the public comments folder.
Okay, we're gonna wait another minute or so. Anyone out there wants to submit a comment, you can do so via email to publiccomment@ci.pacifica.ca.us. That's public comment at ci.pacifica.ca.us. We'll wait another minute.
Deputy City Clerk Brooks, I don't see any additional comments coming through the email box. Do you have any?
No, I do not.
Think it's safe to move on? Yes? Okay. So with that, I will close oral communications and I will open up council communications. I'm looking for raised hands from other council members for council communications. Councilmember Vaterlos?
Hi. I've been to so many meetings, I couldn't even count them, sometimes 4 a day. So it's amazing what Zoom has done for us. I wanted to comment. Today I had to go to the office to print the papers for tonight's meeting, and I saw maybe one person wearing a mask. It's been suggested through the county that everyone, when they go out, please use some type of face covering, not necessarily a mask, but a t-shirt, something across your face, a bandana. I did not see it today. I did see the beach and there were hardly any people on the beach. I drove down there specifically to look at it. But please follow the regulations that we are working on. It's keeping the numbers down and we need to continue it. Wear something across your face when you go out, practice social distancing, and please just do what the orders say. And this will go away faster and so that we can get on with our regular lives. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councilmember Vaterlos. I see Councilmember Mike O'Neill has his hand raised.
Oh, yeah, I just want to kind of reiterate what Sue Vaterdahl said, but I also would like to really encourage everybody to dine out once a week if you can afford it, or twice a week, just to support our businesses. Those of you that have kids in sports or in schools or whatever, these are the merchants you reach out to for donations, and they're really having a hard time keeping up the roof over their head and their employees. And a lot of their employees are the kids that you have. Okay. So I would just really encourage people to patronize the businesses that are open and the businesses that help support Pacifica. So that's, and I've been to several of these Zoom meetings here for the county events, but none of them are real, important right now.
Okay, thanks, Mike. Councilmember Mary Beer?
Okay, thank you. I feel like there's so many people I want to thank. So first of all, thank you for the city staff for doing just an awesome job at keeping the city moving forward through all of this. It's a really horrible thing that we're experiencing right now. And so coming together is super important. And I also would like to thank our school districts for just showing amazing leadership and kind of moving so quickly to keep our kids educated. It's been really amazing what our school districts have been able to do. I've been spending a lot of time gathering and sharing information. I've been attending the Zoom meetings 3 times a week to hear from our county. We're learning there about hospital data and lab testing data and the data dashboard, which you can find at smchealth.org. So if you want to look up the data, the county data is up there. It's very informative. So please take a look at that. Again, it's smchealth.org. I want to thank PCT for allowing us to come down and do a PSA. I know Mayor Martin did one. It felt really good to be able to share with the community. And I'm sure there's going to be more of those. And I know through my work, we've been able to connect a lot of people to telehealth for mental health services. So please know that there is telehealth services available. But most importantly, we need to support our Pacifica Resource Center in any way that we can, because they are working overtime and they're doing a fantastic job in serving our community. I have been trying really hard to respond to the literally, like, I would say hundreds, maybe that's exaggerating, but hundreds of emails that we have been getting in the past few weeks. There's sometimes when I'm not doing as well as I would like to be doing, because this is a really interesting experience when we're all sheltering at home and we're trying to do the best that we can. So if I haven't gotten to your emails, I will. It's really challenging to be able to do this right now. So I'm doing the best that I can. I know there's a lot of questions about Terra Nova Boulevard. I think we're going to be able to acknowledge those questions. And I know a lot of us have been responding to those emails already. Is it okay for me to ask for some clarification at this time, Mayor? Can I do that?
Yeah, I think that's okay if city attorneys are okay with that.
Well, I think there was just some people who did public comment who were talking about enforcement specifically. So maybe if we could just explain to our community the kind of enforcement that's going on, there wouldn't be so many questions. So maybe we could do that.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I talked to city manager earlier today about this. I'm not sure if we're going to set aside time for, I know city manager was going to address some of it, but I know we were going to ask chief to clarify also some things because there's some legal issues. So
yeah.
City manager.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Martin and Councilmember Beer. During my staff comments, I was going to talk a bit about enforcement, and then if Chief Steidel, if we need additional detail, Chief Steidel is available to weigh in on that.
Okay, great.
And then you can ask questions at that time.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much.
Okay. Okay, so Mary, if that's it, Councilmember or Mayor Pro Tem Beckmeyer. You there? We may have lost Mayor Pro Tem Beckmeyer.
I'm here, but I don't see you guys. So can you hear me?
Yep, we can hear you. Great.
Great. So just a couple of items. I concur with the statements made about meetings, and the new platform, the new way of doing it. So what feels like months ago, we started doing this, and it's really been just a couple of short weeks. So if you're tired, that's why. It's the time warp that's going on right now is very challenging. I just wanted to state that I'm hearing a lot of different information and requests about the needs of PRC and suggestions about, as Councilmember O'Neill said, gift certificates, that sort of thing. But people have asked me, and I don't really know the answer, so I went to PRC staff, and it looks like the important needs right now are diapers in sizes 5, 6, and 7, baby wipes, peanut butter, and jam or jelly. I had heard something from Congresswoman Spear about eggs and milk, and I didn't know how to respond to that. So if that's also a need, you know, if you can shoot out a little update to us periodically, that way we can keep putting that information out to our networks as well. I also want to echo all of the thanks and appreciation to city staff, to first responders, to grocery store and food folks on the front lines, and to our Recology of the Coast staff who have just been amazing in keeping our city functioning during a time when we're really challenged with functioning. So thank you for keeping the ship steering in the right direction. That's all.
Great. Okay. So I have a few things here. Okay, bear with me. They are a little jumbled. First, I want to say thank you to everyone, echo all of everyone else's comments. Food service workers, grocery store, healthcare, everyone on the front lines that is keeping our city going, and especially our city staff. You're doing an amazing job keeping up, and I'm looking forward to being able to get to a point where we can start planning. And I want to thank City Manager for already doing that. So he's going to be talking a little bit more later about how we're going to handle our work plan that we have right now and what's deemed essential and not essential. I also want to thank Councilmember Beer for talking about that in her PSA to PCTV. And if you haven't seen that, go to the PCT's website and you can see Councilmember Beer's message to the community. It was right on. Thanks, Mary. I just wanted to let everyone know that we do get a lot of emails about the RV situation, in particular from folks on Terranova Boulevard. We cannot talk about this evening. It cannot be a topic of discussion. Unfortunately, it's not on the agenda, but City Manager will talk a little bit more later about that, as it is a hot topic item. So you'll hear a little bit more about that later. I want to echo what Councilmember Beer said, responding to emails. We're getting a ton of emails, ton of texts, ton of Facebook messages, messages on our board, Twitter, Instagram. I mean, you name it, we are getting it. And it's great. It's important. We need it. Just be patient. Thank you. We appreciate it because it's so urgent for you and it's so urgent for us. And just understand we have about 100 urgent things, and for you it's one. So just please be a little bit patient with us and understand that we're here you and we're here for you. We just need a little more time. So thank you for your understanding. I also want to remind everyone that we are always reminding everyone to shelter in place. The advice is to recreate only within 5 miles of your house. If you can condense that even a little further, that's amazing. Echo Councilmember O'Neill. Eat out once a week if you can. My family and I always go to the Half Moon Bay Bakery on Saturdays because we always went to swimming class there, and we want to keep some sense of normalcy for our family, so we still go and get cookies on Saturday and then bring them home. So they're still getting our money, and we still do our regular Friday night burritos at our local taqueria. So let's just try to keep the economy infused as much as we can. I know a lot of people don't want to leave their houses, but everybody's really being mindful these days about how they're preparing food. And I know we have gloves and masks and, Purell and spray. We're spraying down everything too. So just be mindful of that and try to spend your money here in Pacifica. If you're buying gas, please buy in Pacifica. I know nobody's using their cars anymore, but try to do all your shopping here in Pacifica if you can, okay? Because obviously it infuses our economy. Also buy gift cards if you can. If you know your local massage place is not open, try to buy a gift card so you can get that massage later and they can get the funds now. Just some things to think about. But most importantly, enjoy your family. Puzzles, fort making, rock painting, you name it. We've done it, and if we haven't, we will. So just really enjoy your family. I wanted to give you a little bit of an update. We are all on the county calls 3 times a week and other calls that we are invited to. We're trying to get as much information as we can. And most, if not all, of that information is on the county's website. They have a specific website for COVID-19 issues. If you haven't visited it, go there, because if we can't answer your question, they can. It's an amazing website, and they really come together super quickly. It's so great. So there have been some questions about the homeless. There's a hotel being converted into a homeless, not a shelter, but sort of a homeless temporary housing. So if you have anyone, if you know anyone, you can dial 211 and get more information on how to help those individuals. The unfortunate thing is a lot of folks who are homeless don't want to come in off the streets, really. So, but if you know anyone that's interested, you can certainly get them some shelter. There's some good news, and I know we're hearing at a national level that there's no ICU capacity, there's no ventilators. San Mateo County has 76% ICU capacity and 76% ventilator capacity. So we're hearing amazing things about us having flattened that curve. Go to the website and see the projection of where we would have been if we had not sheltered in place as early as we did, and we had not been so good at it. So we got to give ourselves some credit, but now is not the time to lighten up. Now is not the time to be energized by the good weather, to visit places that you normally wouldn't. So the other thing is that there are approximately 700 positive cases in the county. It's not being tracked at a local level. We're getting emails saying, how many cases in Pacifica? The situation is such that if somebody calls us and says, I have it, that's how we know about it. Folks who get it, they call their doctor. The doctor recommends, follows a certain rule book and says, yes, go get tested, or no, don't get tested, or they're off to the emergency. After that, it's county, it's the hospitals, and it's coroners. I mean, nobody's calling back up Pacifica saying, oh, hey, so-and-so is from Pacifica. It doesn't happen like that. Eventually, our data is getting better. We may get there, but right now, what you're seeing, I think, is just projection. So remember, we can't talk about things that are not facts. We as council members, we can't say, oh, I mean, somebody called me and said, oh, I think I have it, but that's all I can say. I mean, we don't really know. So we have to talk about facts. We can't talk about what we think or what conjecture. So I just wanted to remind everyone that there's a great data point on what it would have looked like had we not sheltered in place so soon. If you do fit the criteria for testing, which we are really working on, I say we, but the county, loosening our restrictions. They're actually pretty tight on what qualifies to go get a test at the Verily test site at the San Mateo County Fairgrounds. But the county's working on really loosening those up. So if you need a ride, you can get a ride, and you can contact the county for that. There's a van that will come pick you up and drop you off. So take advantage of that if you need that. We had a legislative update from Assemblymember Berman today, and just really quickly, some of the salient points. The state will send $7 billion in emergency funds. So it's a pretty significant amount. We're still expected to be able to be within budget this year. Surprising, but great. All mail-in ballot is also on the floor for this November election. It's being proposed by Assemblymember Berman. So stay tuned. November might be an all mail-in ballot. So everyone is aware there have been strike teams that have been deployed into nursing facilities, which includes funds from Facebook. So you're hearing nursing facilities, money's being infused and personnel are being deployed. So that is some good news right there. Also, the county and the state have really heard the need for childcare for essential workers. There is childcare for essential workers right here in Pacifica. So go to the website and propose that question. You will find the answer. They will email you back. I had to email them myself. And if you're an essential worker, there are at least 3 facilities here in Pacifica that can help you. There's a qualification process, but also Governor Newsom announced $100 million to support child care providers. That would be state subsidized for safe and clean facilities. So some of our own here in Pacifica are probably going to be able to get some of that funding to keep them open and to keep them clean and safe for these children and families. Also, I don't know if you've heard it yet, but today some news came out that the Western states, Oregon, Washington, and California, the governor is proposing a PAC to help with our funds. So suppose, united, we will, get more. We'll see. Some information from SAMCETA that Roseanne Faust has already given us, but I just wanted to reiterate that's the San Mateo County Economic Development Association. They're about 1 week away from San Mateo County Credit Union, basically the solidification of their relationship for grant distribution. They want to launch on 4/22, so I think that's next Wednesday. So stay tuned. Those folks who are not eligible are 501c3s, self-employed or independent contractors, unfortunately. But you're saying something. Hang on, unmute yourself, Sue Varlas.
The self-employed and independent contractors, it's 1 to 10 employees. So a one person is an independent contractor or a sole proprietor. It's just not the 501c3s.
Okay. So maybe I misunderstood that. But from what I'm hearing is that there's federal funding and other organizational grant funding available for those that do not apply. So check out their website. Roseanne and her team are dedicated to really helping small businesses stay up and running. We did learn that independent contractor employment, that the federal plan is being implemented by the state, and there's really no process yet. So if you've applied and you haven't gotten a response, there's a good reason, because there's no real process. But SAMCETA is putting pressure on them at every turn, and those independent contractors are eligible for payroll protection, which they're still solidifying that process too, and the funds. Supposedly there's going to be more funds infused to that too. Okay, so moving on, I just wanted to give an update. We received an update on Friday. As of April 9th, our census participation in Pacifica is 60.7%, which I thought was pretty good, but I really don't have anything to compare it to. It sounds like it's good. Just encourage everyone to make sure that they are included in the census. I attended the Peninsula Clean Energy Board meeting, and one positive note is that low-income residents are getting $100 credits to pay their electricity bills. So please socialize that information for those low-income residents. And finally, I wanted to remind everyone that it is Earth Week coming up. While we are not celebrating our Eco Fest in Pacifica, everyone is really bummed out about that. Pacific Beach Coalition is conducting a virtual Earth Week actually an Earth Month challenge. So check out PacificBeachCoalition.org's website to find out how you can participate and help keep Pacifica beautiful. Everyone stay safe, stay in place, and stay strong, because together we're gonna get through this. All right.
Deirdre, can I say one more thing?
Sure, go ahead, Mary.
I got some information from Anita Reese at the Pacifica Resource Center. So she wanted to let you know that milk and eggs were in short supply last week. They're okay this week, but they may be short again next week. It's more of a transportation issue. It's getting the supplies to Second Harvest, not a supply issue. And also she said about homeless staying in the hotels or getting connected to hotels. To connect to potential hotel stays for unhoused, they need to go to a core agency for a referral to shelter, who can then determine if a hotel stay is available. PRC is Pacifica's core agency. That's it.
That's great, Mary. Thank you for that information. Up to the minute. So with that, we will move on to staff communication. City manager.
Great, thank you, Mayor Martin and council members. Kevin Woodhouse, city manager. I apologize in advance for some thorough staff communications that I'd like to provide, because I want to cover 3 topics. I want to provide updates about the city's coronavirus responses to date and what we've been doing, and some updates regarding that. I do want to touch a little bit on the topic of enforcement of the health orders, because that's coming up a lot with public questions about that. And then I want to conclude by talking a little bit about the impact of this health crisis to various priority city initiatives and projects that are on the council's work plan for this fiscal year, but may not be essential business right at this moment. So I'll just jump right in terms of initial, the coronavirus response updates from the city. As the mayor mentioned, the countywide tally of cases is 701 as of today, and the county is holding currently, tragically though, at 21 deaths. There was a new health official, Scott Moore's health official statement that came out today. So I encourage everyone to go to SMC Health website and read his statement. The way I'd characterize it is as cautiously optimistic that our efforts and our adherence to the health orders is helping to flatten the curve. But that's cautious because data is not always complete, and we don't want to stop that good trend. So the message that he and all of us countywide are putting out is that, now is really the time to double down on those health orders. Take them very seriously, and we're working on continuing to put that message out and hope that that's effective. In regards to putting messages out, as everyone knows, the city's webpage about the coronavirus serves as a portal to lots of information, all of the city-related information. There's a link right on the home page to go to that page. So I encourage everyone to check that frequently. We're updating it frequently. Additionally, the city has really been focused on putting messaging out on all of our social media channels. As was mentioned earlier, the council members have done PSAs through PCTV, which has been a fantastic resource, weekly update letters from the mayor, and more. Weeks ago, we made the decision to close the beach parking lots, and that decision has certainly helped with folks adhering to the health orders for physically distancing and sheltering in place. In addition, in our parks, all the facilities and structures are closed. The grassy open areas remain open. There is signage, of course, encouraging the physically distancing from others, and as well along the beach trail, the bathrooms along the beach are closed, but the bathrooms at Frontierland Park, I'm sorry, the bathrooms along the coastal trail are open, with extra cleaning occurring, the bathrooms at Frontierland Park are closed. So in general, the essential city work is continuing and really is encompassing the focus of the city staff impacted resources. And I'll get to that a little bit more under the city projects impact update. I did want to mention that the commission and committees are mostly not meeting, but as was mentioned earlier, the Economic Development Committee is meeting virtually tomorrow night because they're going to be discussing essential business related to technical assistance that committee members can provide to our local business community. The Planning Commission will be conducting essential business as well at a Planning Commission meeting on Monday the 20th. And of course, the City Council meetings are all focused on essential business items. As we heard earlier from the San Mateo Economic Development Association, from Roseanne Faust, there's an immense amount of coordination countywide occurring through SAMCETA as well as through the county. And really one sort of silver lining of this crisis we're in is the level and amount of regional collaboration and coordination that is being undertaken. And I'll mention on this point too, that there's been a group formed countywide to focus on mid to long range planning about how do we phase back in to whatever our new normal is. And Assistant City Manager Lorenzo Hines is serving on that committee countywide, and that will help advise all the cities in the county and probably beyond about the best tactics for phasing back to some version of new normal. A couple of positive points to re-emphasize for everyone is we have some really significant essential business, senior service, food, and transportation programs that are being conducted through alternative methods. And so that's a great positive note, and it's working well. We have a seniors shopping assistance program that is available. We have the Meals on Wheels for homebound seniors. And of course, instead of our congregate lunch, we have a lunch pickup program that is occurring. Everyone probably saw the fun thing that the city did on Friday with the Easter bunnies reverse Easter egg hunt. And that was a big success, and a lot of community spirit came out to support that. And then with mentions of the Pacifica Resource Center's efforts, I did want to acknowledge Public Works and Planning staff who worked very quickly to assist in the appropriate permitting and licensing so that they could have a cold storage locker down at the resource center related to storing food. Because what we're going to see in the coming weeks, we have seen, and it'll continue, is really the need of the food distribution center. So that extra storage capacity at PRC has been very important. Let me move on and touch a little bit on the topic of enforcement of the health orders. And I'll mention a few items, and then I'd like to have Police Chief Dan Steidel chime in with any additional details that he would like to provide. So we are getting a lot of questions, calls about, are people doing the physical distancing? Are, people staying local? Why aren't people staying in? And let me say, just in regards to enforcement, the approach countywide is an educational and informational approach. This county, and more or less across the state, have not taken a citations-based approach to violations of health orders. And I'll touch on why that is and the complexities about that. What we have been highly focused on is, as I mentioned earlier, the education, the information that we're putting out, and actual physical signage at all of these public spaces. And additionally, because a key part of the county order relates to businesses that aren't conducting essential business need to be closed. And our police department is spending a significant amount of time working with businesses on those and checking in and educating them. And by and large, the educational approach is working, and businesses are understanding that they can't be open, certain businesses, and so they are closing. And that's a very important, implementation or piece in our whole approach to this, because businesses obviously are nodes of interaction between people. The challenges with the citation approach, and some public comments have said we should lock down Pacifica and folks should not be allowed in. Number one, that's illegal. We cannot do that legally. And number two, there's no way to know if someone is local or not, or coming 3 miles away or within 5 miles away. And also staffing resource wise and operationally, that type of approach would be infeasible. So some of the comments also have related to, folks that are trying to go to the beach and they park in a neighborhood and they're from out of the area. There's no legal mechanism for us to know, and we can't legally question people about where they're from. And that is a challenge enforcement wise, operationally, regarding that. So again, I'll just reiterate, and the chief can chime in with more detail. The approach is an educational one. We're working really hard to get that message out, have people understand why it's important to be 6 feet apart from others. I mentioned the staff capacity for enforcement would be, we don't have that kind of staff in the police department to be stationed at every popular spot along the coast or in town to do that enforcement. And I think I'll pause there and see if Chief Steidel wants to add anything additional.
Certainly. Thank you, City Manager Woodhouse. Good evening, Honorable Mayor and council members. I'm Dan Steidel, your Chief of Police. So to add what the City Manager has already said tonight, enforcing an order like this to the letter of the law would be extremely difficult and actually would be impossible. As he stated, we've had numerous calls from people wanting to know why we're not roadblocking the city, if you will, and preventing people from coming in that don't live here. Those type of things are reserved for disasters. If you recall, the wildfires we've had up north in the last few years, oftentimes law enforcement will lock those cities down, or multiple cities. That's at a disaster area where they're not letting people in for their safety reasons and only letting residents in a little at a time once the area starts opening up. That's completely different than what we have here. We don't have the authority to do that. Doing so would also take an incredible amount of staff. It took to lock down the areas, the cities up in the North Bay, it took officers from all over the Bay Area to make that happen. So aside from us not having the authority to do it, people have brought up the idea, well, you do it at a DUI checkpoint. What's the difference? That is true. The difference is there's some very specific case law that allows us to conduct DUI checkpoints and detain people and ask them where they're from and ask for their driver's license, etc. Because what you're doing a checkpoint, you're stopping people and detaining them, albeit for a very short period of time, without cause. And you have to have legal backing to be able to do that. And in this case, even if we had the amount of people, the staff that would take necessary to do that, we don't have the right to do that. In terms of the citations, in terms of enforcement, City Manager Woodhouse is correct. We've taken a educational approach in this county. These are misdemeanor citations, not just you pay a fine. Usually it's a criminal charge. It's a little bit more than just a traffic ticket. It's taken very seriously. And I think the district attorney and all the other law enforcement agencies in this county understand the difficulty, especially in a community like ours, it would be enforcing that. Like the city manager said, we can't tell by seeing who's parked. We can't tell by people walking around who lives within 5 miles of our community, who's who lives 5.1 miles away and is subject to a citation for violating the shelter-in-place order. That is nearly impossible to do. Even if we had people on overtime at all those choke points, we couldn't stop everybody and force everybody to tell us where they're from. We could have conversation with people, but we certainly couldn't force them to identify themselves without cause. That's where the challenges lie. One thing I did want to bring up, I've heard from several community members, and council members have probably seen in emails regarding Santa Cruz and their efforts. Why aren't we being more like Santa Cruz? Santa Cruz has a little bit different situation going on right now. Santa Cruz, reading from their website, their county order, which has been in effect, that was updated on April 8th. They have temporary closure of parks, trails, trailheads, beaches, and beach access point. They have shut down that community and they've shut down their recreation. That's a completely different story. So that's how some of the incidents you're hearing about in Santa Cruz are being publicized. About a week ago, one incident that made the news in the Bay Area was regarding a large gathering that they were warned by the police department they could not have. They had it anyway, and they issued a whole bunch of citations. If that occurred in Pacifica and we were aware of a large gathering and they disobeyed the order, we would have taken that same action too. So the circumstances are a little bit different.
Thank you, Chief. I did want to reiterate, I was going to mention that, yes, if the educational approach to flagrant violations of the orders doesn't work and those violators continue that violation, as the chief mentioned, we would cite those folks. So while we take an education approach, there's a tool in those flagrant cases, and that's what happened in Santa Cruz and this other incident in the Bay Area. Also, it was mentioned about beach closures. In Pacifica and the entire San Mateo County coast, the beaches are not closed at this point. They're intended to be available for local users. The beach parking lots are closed. If the county and the state would be a major player in this, and the cities, Half Moon Bay and Pacifica, if in weeks to come, that becomes more of an issue, beach closures could be potentially in the future, but we're not at that point right now. San Mateo County and the state is not at that point right now. So those are the comments about enforcement. I wanted to move on to impact to city major initiatives and projects. I won't get into a lot of
excuse me, Kevin.
Yes.
Can I ask if that answers Councilmember Beer's questions, that the enforcement aspect of all that? Okay, she's saying yes, but her mute is on. Okay, thanks. Go ahead.
Sure. So I won't go into a lot of detail about this, but I did want to mention, so, we're 6 weeks into the city actively just focused on the essential business and communicating out protective measures about our coronavirus response. We're over 3 weeks into the health orders, sheltering in place, and physical distancing. And while the city resources are very much focused on all of these essential services, our resources are down by 25% because of that focus on essential services. Many employees that can work remotely are working remotely and are continuing work on these major projects and initiatives, but it's a challenging time, and there's a significant number of important projects on the council's work plan for this fiscal year. And it's time, and what staff has done over the last week is put together a status report, which I issued to the community in a letter on Friday, and it's on the coronavirus webpage. So please go and to the community out there listening, please go and read that, because it has detailed updates about many of the city's major projects. For example, we were in the midst of some major planning projects, the Sharp Park specific plan update, the general plan update. And those are two examples of projects that depend heavily heavily on community engagement. And it's the council's preference to, because we're meeting 100% virtual at this point in time, the council's preference that we delay the next steps in those projects that involve public meetings until we can have in-person public comment. Additionally, there are other projects where that also applies to, where there are significant controversial, important decisions to be made that need significant community engagement. And the preference is that we wait until we can have in-person meetings. If this drags on and drags on and drags on, you know, those decisions may be subject to change because there may be essential business, regulatory deadlines, et cetera, that need to be met. But at this point in time, there's a list of many projects that are on hold waiting for in-person public comment. And additionally, you know, one of the impacts and aspects of the coronavirus is it's this unprecedented, long-lasting pandemic that has created and is going to exacerbate disruptions to normal routines in the community for everyone in the community, businesses, residents, visitors. This includes the city as well. So we're going to be looking at a new version of normal in the coming months and years. And one of the impacts of this is the impending recession. So there are some significant financial impacts that have already impacted the city and that are going to impact our budget development for next year that are also framing the context for our major priorities. And at the April 27th City Council meeting, we'll be kicking off the budget process with budget strategies. So that's going to be an important discussion point at that time. A number I wanted to mention specifically because a number of the public comments had addressed questions about the oversized vehicle ordinance that the council adopted and has gone into effect, but is not being enforced. And the enforcement of that ordinance is delayed until at least September 1st. And that's a business operational impact from the coronavirus. And at the same time as the Public Works Department and the Police Department are working towards the signage that is necessary for the enforcement of that ordinance, the city is also working with the Resource Center and the Unhoused in Pacifica Task Force on developing a permit parking type of program. And work on that program is also delayed at this point in time. These don't fall into the health crisis essential business activity, and they're very important to include in-person public comment for those initiatives. So those are both delayed. At the same time, there's comments about and questions from the community about areas of the city, such as in the Terra Nova area, similar to comments and questions about motorhomes parked in the city, you know, in years past and elsewhere in the city about enforcement and about the ordinance. And I'll just say regarding all of that implementation, that as our public works resources allow during this busy time, we are implementing our streets resurfacing program. That's an essential project. The Terra Nova neighborhood area, the Terra Nova Boulevard is identified for a slurry seal in the future. So when we get to the point of implementing that slurry seal, that makes it a good candidate for implementation, depending on funding, of our bike and pedestrian master plan projects, one of which includes bike lanes in the Terra Nova area as well. And I mention this because all of these factors, bike lanes, lines of sight, and safety, are all part of the traffic engineers, the city engineers' evaluation of where oversized vehicles can park. The ordinance is adopted that way and was written that way. So those are factors that we'll be getting to in due course. I think I'll stop there. There are numerous major initiatives that are updated in my letter from Friday, so I encourage everyone to go and look at those details. And I'll just conclude on a positive note that, you know, we're going to get through this. The city is going to get back to focusing on all of these really important initiatives in the context of whatever our new normal is, our new financial normal, et cetera. And we have so many great things underway. We're really excited. I know the city council is really excited to get back and focused on those. It's just a challenging time right now to be doing that, while the most important thing is this health crisis that we're dealing with. And that's really absorbing all of our 100%, you know, focus and attention. It's the most important thing right now. As the mayor mentioned, focus on family and all of your loved ones and staying safe, and the community coming together so that we can get through this as quickly as possible is just critical. That completes my comments.
Thank you. Okay, I don't see any hands raised for any questions for you, Kevin. I will move on to, we have no public hearings this evening, but you know, it is almost 9 o'clock and I'm wondering if we can just take a 5-minute break. If everyone can put their, clerk coffee, is that allowed? Can we, everyone put their video, turn their video off and put on mute and come back in 5?
You can take a 5-minute break.
Okay, so it's 8:57 right now. So we will start at 9:02. You all know me and how on time I am with my gavel. So I don't have that tonight, but 5 minutes, we'll be back. Thanks, everyone. just give her another few seconds.
I'm here.
Okay, great. We will resume our meeting at 9:02 p.m. and we will open up items for consideration. So item number 8, consideration of adoption of an urgency ordinance establishing a temporary moratorium on commercial tenant evictions for non-payment of rent for tenants impacted by the COVID-19 pandemic in the city of Pacifica. So we're considering the adoption of this. It has to pass by 4/5 vote. And I wanted to remind anyone that for council questions, we're going to raise hands via the Zoom app. And this will also be open for public comment after the staff report. So you can submit your comments via public comment at ci.pacifica.ca.us. And with that, I will hand it over to City Attorney Kenyon.
Yes.
We can hear you.
Okay, it says I'm unable to start my video for some reason.
Your video was showing.
Yeah,
But
Sarah, do you know why that is? Oh, well, you don't need to see me. You can hear me.
We can hear you, City Attorney.
But mine, I'm unmuting it and it won't let, I'm starting my video, but it won't allow me to. Is that on your end?
It looks, it may be just the internet connection that you have there at the moment.
Okay.
That you can.
All right. So thank you, Madam Mayor and Council. Good evening. This was placed on the agenda after the city manager and I spoke about what has been happening in the county since these shelter-in-place orders from the state and the county have been put in place. And as I'm sure you're all aware, we have received a lot of questions and comments about tenant evictions. And what has happened since March 16th, the governor issued an order which allowed cities and counties the authority to enact temporary moratoria on residential and commercial evictions. On March 23rd, the Board of Supervisors did adopt a temporary urgency ordinance on prohibiting evictions of residential tenants countywide, including the city of Pacifica. That urgency ordinance did not, however, address commercial evictions. On April 7th, the San Mateo County Board of Supervisors did adopt an urgency ordinance protecting commercial tenants from eviction. However, that did not apply within the incorporated city, so it does not apply to the city of Pacifica. However, on March 27th, Governor Newsom did issue another moratorium order, which established a statewide moratorium on residential and tenant evictions until May 31st, 2020. The moratorium essentially extends the time for residential tenants to respond to an unlawful detainer complaint from 5 to 60 days under certain requirements, most of them that the tenant be able to show that it was due to COVID-related issues. It also prohibits the enforcement of writs of possession until May 31st, which means that tenants will not be evicted from their premises by the sheriff. The other actions that have been taken that affect commercial tenancies, in addition to the governor's recent order, is that the Superior Court is essentially closed and has been closed since March 16th. And that essentially means practically that no unlawful detainer matters are moving forward. On April 6th, the Judicial Council of all the courts in California adopted emergency rules that will be in effect until 90 days after the governor rescinds his state of emergency. The Judicial Council rules prohibit the issuance of any summons to defendants in unlawful detainer cases. And it also prohibits entry of a default judgment against any tenants unless the court can determine that it is necessary for public health and safety. These court closures and the Judicial Council rules, as well as the governor's order, mean that practically that tenant removals, whether they be commercial or residential, will not occur during this emergency period. However, in that, neither the county ordinance, the fact that the county ordinance does not specifically apply in the incorporated cities, there are a lot of cities in San Mateo County that are currently considering whether or not to adopt their own local commercial eviction moratoria to supplement and to make clear that, at least in the city of Pacifica, commercial tenancies will be protected through the emergency. The proposed ordinance that we drafted does mirror closely what the county of San Mateo adopted. And essentially, its key features are: it prohibits property owners from evicting commercial real estate property tenants for failure to pay rent, provided that they can demonstrate that the failure is due to a decrease in their net business income that results from the pandemic. The property owners must also first provide tenants with notice of this urgency ordinance if it were to be adopted. The tenant must demonstrate a COVID-related nexus to their failure to pay rent by providing documentation to the property owner, essentially within 14 days of receiving notice of their inability to pay rent. It also protects businesses with gross receipts of $2.5 million and less. It's a figure that is consistent with the county's commercial moratorium ordinance. It does allow the commercial tenants to use this ordinance as an affirmative defense to any unlawful detainer action. And it provides the tenants the ability to pay back rent for up to 90 days after the expiration of the urgency ordinance. It expires on May 31st unless the council extends it. And I do want to note that it does not relieve any tenants from their liability to pay rent. It just essentially defers payment of rent. And while there is no immediate fiscal impact, there is the potential for litigation exposure because this is such a novel issue. It hasn't really been tested in courts yet. But given the practical realities that UD evictions will not be able to occur, I'm not as concerned with litigation exposure because I think it would be hard for any landlord to prove that, in fact, their inability to evict tenants was caused by this urgency ordinance as opposed to the other orders that are currently in place. With that, I'm available to answer any questions or provide any additional information that you may want.
Okay, I see Councilmember O'Neill's hand up.
City Attorney, have any other cities in San Mateo County adopted this? To your knowledge?
That I believe that South San Francisco is considering it. I believe the city of San Mateo has adopted one. But I understand that other cities, we may be one of the first cities to actually have an urgency ordinance on its agenda. I know Redwood City will be considering it sometime in the future. If not tonight, I'm not sure. Same with several other cities. I have been in contact with a lot of the city attorneys in San Mateo County, and my understanding is that all of them were going to be considering it at some point.
Okay. City Manager, do you have any thoughts on this or input?
Thank you, Councilmember O'Neill. Do you mean specifically about what other cities are doing, or?
Just in general, staff impact, or even if Thomas wants to get involved, is this an issue that the business owners have mentioned to him? And, I mean, just your thoughts in general of what you've talked about with other city managers too.
Yeah, I think that, as the city attorney mentioned, the topic of commercial eviction moratoria is a little bit more complex than the residential one. So a lot of the dialogue amongst city managers and city attorneys is balancing that aspect of this, the economic aspect and wanting to assist small businesses versus that legal risk. In terms of specific inquiries from businesses or instances of them being threatened with eviction, I'm not aware of any in Pacifica at this point in time. But this is just a topic, an important topic. This is a very unusual, unprecedented time. And again, this is just sort of a delay in what the rent that they would need to pay. So it adds an additional protections for them so that they can be focused on really keeping their business alive at this point in time.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Beer?
Yeah, Michelle, so just to be clear, if we chose to, we could extend this tonight and past May 31st?
No, the ordinance as drafted will take effect immediately if it's adopted tonight.
Yeah.
And the ordinance will last until May 31st. And then at that point, you have the opportunity to extend it if necessary.
Okay, thanks.
Anyone else have any other questions? I don't see any other hands raised. I can tell you that I was on a couple mayor's calls for the county, and 2 different occasions, approximately 3/4 of the county mayors were in favor of the county putting forth this moratorium, and the county really didn't want to take on the liability. But at that time, by the time we had our second meeting, I think the city of San Mateo had already passed their own, and Foster City proposed sort of a fund to help out folks who may be threatened with eviction. And I think at that time, most folks were already thinking, well, we have to do something. I mean, we're a city of small businesses. So I obviously was in favor of that. Does anyone have anything else, or do I have a motion? Councilmember O'Neill?
Michelle, will you be drafting an ordinance, or is this kind of like a boilerplate ordinance that's, everybody's using?
It was crafted from the San Mateo County ordinance.
Okay, the San Mateo County.
And it is ready to be adopted tonight. So,
okay, all right, thank you. I just wanted to find out, is there any public comments?
That's right. Thank you, Mike O'Neill. I do have to ask if there are any public comments. So, Sarah, have you received any?
No, I don't see any public comments on this item.
Okay, well, I will make a motion that this, hold on, I got to switch to the,
I have, hang on, Mike, real quick. I have Councilmember Beer or Vaterla.
Oh, sorry. I didn't mean to cut anybody
Or
off.
was that going to be a motion?
I was going to make a motion, so he can go ahead.
Okay.
Wait, I have one thing.
Okay. Councilmember Beer?
Okay, so I was looking, and it says provides tenants the ability to pay back rent up to 90 days after the expiration or termination of the ordinance. Okay, so say we have a business that had to close, temporarily, and then has to reopen. Is 90 days enough time for them to pay back that rent? Can we extend it longer than that?
Well, there are some communities that have extended residential tenant eviction paybacks for longer than 90 days. The longest that I've seen is 6 months. And I really think that it should not go longer than 6 months, because one of the protections that we have, I believe, is that in effect, we are not eliminating their obligation to pay rent. If we were to extend it further out than 6 months, I believe that landlords would have a better argument. And so anywhere between 3 months and 6 months, I would not have an issue with.
And so for me personally, I think we need to give our community the absolute most protection that we possibly can. So if we can do 6 months, I would really, really like to do that.
Michelle?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, sorry. I just saw Sue physically raise her hand.
Sue Vaterlos, go ahead.
I'm in favor of the 90 days because we have a lot of small landlords that have to continue to pay their bills. And there is a lot of money available for small business. Not at the moment, they're not getting it. But I think it's hard on the small landlords too. So I think 90 days is a sufficient time after we're back open.
Okay,
Councilmember or Mayor Pro Tem Beckmeyer?
I just wanted to ask Michelle, the city attorney, about the point at which we would need to come back and make a request to extend if we decided to go for the longer period. If you could help me understand the timelines a little bit better.
Well, yeah, I think there's two different issues. The 90 days that Councilmember Beer is referring to is the deferral period. It's not the period of the effectiveness of the ordinance. The effective date of the sunset date on the ordinance is May 31st. That's different. The 90-day deferral period relates to, okay, when do they have to pay back the rent? We know that they have to pay it back. We are setting forth, when do you have to pay it back? And what we're saying is that you should pay it back whenever this urgency ordinance expires. And currently it's set to expire on May 31st. The question that Councilmember Beer raised was related to, okay, after it expires, how long should the tenant have to pay it back? And to that point, Councilmember Beer, there was another point, a very important point that I did not mention, that the cities around the county have been talking about, is that to the extent we are adopting moratoria, albeit locally or by the county, we are trying to make them all as uniform as possible, so that if there is a challenge, we would all be in this sort of boat together. And if our ordinances are similar, then we will all, reap the benefits of a, for lack of a better word, joint defense. So I do want to point that out there, that there was a discussion about trying to be very coordinated in our responses, including our drafting of the ordinance, which is why we took the draft, or we took the San Mateo County ordinance as the template for our ordinance. And the 90 days is in the county moratorium.
And that's based on the date of May 31st is based on the projected end date of the emergency. Is that correct?
Yes, and it's also based off of what the county used as their termination date, with the caveat that it could always be extended. And that, and you would, right now, I think it's reasonable to anticipate that this emergency will last through May. I'm not so sure that it would be reasonable for the council to assume that this emergency will last beyond May, because we've gotten no official indication from the governor or even the county, obviously, since they put a May 31st date, that it was likely to, the shelter in place orders are likely to extend beyond May 31st.
Okay, so let me make sure I understand. So let's say the May 31st date sticks, then does the 90-day period that you were referring to earlier commence at that point? Or did I hear you say that the rent is due as of the end of the emergency, which is May 31st?
The former. It would be due 90 days after May 31st, unless you extend it. If you extend, if it May 31st, if these shelter in place orders are still in place, I would bring back to you an extension of this urgency ordinance to be extended at least as long as any shelter in place orders are in place. So the intent of this urgency ordinance is to make sure that it is in place until the shelter in place orders are lifted. Right now, our best estimate is that those orders will stay in place till May 31st, even though there's no directive saying that. That is our reasonable estimation of how long this will take. And so I'm comfortable with using that date now. I'm not so sure I would be comfortable with extending the date beyond May 31st, because we really don't have any concrete facts or evidence to support a later date.
Okay.
The issue that Councilmember Beer brought up is, should it be 90 days after the termination of the ordinance? Because the termination of the ordinance is going to be whenever this statewide and most likely this national pandemic, it won't be over, but until it's safe enough to lift the shelter in place orders.
Mhm.
Whenever that occurs, do you want the commercial tenants to have 90 days to pay back their rent, or a longer period? It could be anywhere from 90 days to 180 days. I would not recommend longer than 180 days.
Okay, I have another question. In regard to your understanding at this point of, and you alluded to this in the staff report, but I just want to make sure I understand the fact that courts are closed now. And so if a tenant, a landlord were to want to take action, the number of days that are normally allowed for various steps in the process are extended, if I'm not mistaken. But I'm
Correct.
trying to
Sue, are you there? Can anyone else hear Sue?
I cannot hear her.
I cannot hear
Okay.
her, and her screen is frozen.
Okay.
Mayor Martin, you might ask Sue if she can hear us. She maybe turn her video off, so just run audio and we can hear her, maybe.
Sue, if you can hear us, can you just turn off your video and use audio? Might work better. In the meantime, I will go to Councilmember O'Neill.
Yeah, so I just wanted to be sure. So it would be, if the shelter in place is lifted on May 31st, it would be 90 days from May 31st is when the clock would start ticking, right?
Correct.
And it is based on the governor's lifting the shelter in place, not the president.
Well, let me clarify. It's based on what we have put into our ordinance. And we have put into our ordinance a date that we are saying, Pacifica is saying, this urgency ordinance will stay in place until May 31st unless we extend it beyond that.
Okay, but
What I'm explaining to the council is where we got that date from.
Okay, but that date is based on the best guess right now.
Based on the state and the county. It's not based on any presidential declarations.
Okay, so then on May 30th, if the governor extends it to June 30th, we would then vote to extend it to June 30th.
I would bring it back to you without, I wouldn't need direction from the council. I would just bring it back at, as soon as that new order comes in, I
Mhm.
would bring back and extend, if it is extending it past May 31st, I would bring back another urgency ordinance to extend it to whatever the new date is.
And there's no problem is if the landlord and the commercial tenant negotiate, well, I need 6 months to do it, then that's something they just worked out privately,
Yes,
correct?
yes. And one thing that I want to point out, it is in the staff report, but let me reiterate it here. The ordinance only provides an affirmative defense to the tenant should they be the subject of an unlawful detainer action.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So clearly, if the tenant and the landlord reach some other resolution separate and apart from this ordinance, then we would never know, and they would not be prohibited from doing that.
Okay. All right. And then in a mixed use building, because I know of at least one instance where the tenant lives above the business, each would be covered separate ordinance, correct? The tenant, the living part is one and the
Yeah.
commercial is another.
Yes, and right now we have a residential eviction moratorium in place
Right.
because of the county's action to adopt it within the incorporated cities. The county,
Okay.
as the mayor referred to, the county chose not to do it in the incorporated cities with regard to commercial evictions because they thought that the cities were best to determine if their cities needed that type of protection.
Okay. Thank you.
So, Mayor Pro Tem Beckmeyer, we lost you. Did you want to ask any more questions or have more clarification needed? You're going to have to take yourself off mute.
I think I have a good grasp on it. I came back in as quickly as I could. I lost a little bit of what Michelle was saying. But I think my central question really, in terms of being ready to vote on this, is to make sure that Councilmember Beer's question and concern has been addressed in terms of the timing and those issues.
Councilmember Beard?
Well, I'm going to push for extra time just because I think our businesses are going to need it. So I'm still going to push for that. And if there's a consensus, great. If not, then whatever we can get.
While I'm always in favor of tenant protections, I think that we don't have enough data right now to suggest that we don't have any data right now to suggest that anybody is even at risk with their landlords from our small businesses. And I think City Manager Woodhouse, you said that you hadn't received anything. As a matter of fact, in the mayor's call, there was 2 people who had heard from folks. I think one was in Foster City and one was San Mateo, but I haven't been contacted. I don't know if anyone here has been contacted. So I would be more in favor of sticking to this moratorium as it is written today and potentially revisiting if and when we do have to extend the shelter in place and give people more time, because we can always do it at that time. Is that correct, City Attorney?
Correct.
Okay.
Mayor Martin.
Councilmember Votto? Yes.
I'm sorry, I just wanted to jump in to let you know that we have received a public comment on this item if you would like to hear it when appropriate.
Yes. Councilmember Varlas, did you have a comment first or do you want me to take
I have heard from 2 people that didn't actually talk to their landlords yet, but were worried about being evicted as commercial tenants because of their inability to pay rent. We didn't discuss the time period about after. And basically what I told them was that we would be talking about it at tonight's meeting.
Yeah, that's a good point. Thanks for letting us know. And the other thing about this is that if, it's just some food for thought, if a landlord is going to evict someone, there's a very slim chance that they're going to get another tenant in there very quickly. So it's just something to think about. It behooves all of our landlords to talk to their tenants and work things out as they see fit. So just sort of more of a like come together on this hashtag Pacifica Strong thing. So with that, I will open up to public comment.
Thank you, Mayor Martin. The public comment that came in is from Sue Degree. She says, yes, please do help small businesses. We need them. They do need us. Thanks, Sue Degree. And that's the end of the public comments that have come in for this item.
Okay, great. Now, should we wait a minute, or do you think we're good to move on?
I think that you can go ahead in your deliberations, but you can begin your deliberations. And then if the city clerk gets more public comments, I don't think you'll be done with your deliberations in the event they come in. But I would say you can move forward with deliberations. I wouldn't wait.
Okay. So this is an item that we do have to vote on. So I will need a motion. If there's Council Member O'Neill, you have your hand up.
I just wanted to say is I agree with the mayor in that this is such uncharted territory, and no one knows what's going to happen May 31st or whatever. I am reluctant to extend it past the 90 days because I think, potential litigation is best shared by everybody that's involved. So I would prefer to just vote on it, and then May 31st, if we need to address it and look at it, then we do it then.
Okay, Councilmember Beer.
And so, and if the pandemic and the shelter in place is to last longer, then we can revisit this whole thing.
Right.
Well,
yeah.
Talk about it again.
I'm sorry, Madam Mayor. I should clarify that if the council decides not the urgency ordinance effective date or sunset date, but with regard to the 90-day deferral or 180-day deferral, I would not want to change that deferral period on May 31st and extend it to 6 months. So whatever date you pick now, in terms of the deferral period, is the same deferral period you would want to maintain on May 31st because you would just want to extend it.
Wait, I'm confused at that though, because if we have to, if the shelter in place does get extended and we're going to extend our date anyway.
Right.
And maybe maybe the prediction is we're on total lockdown for, 6 more months. Then we would absolutely want to extend the repayment to 120 days. Why could?
Well, but it would automatically be extended 90 days until the end of the urgency or the end of.
Okay, so in other words, they would get an additional 90 days anyway.
Yes.
Okay, I got it.
Yes, but what I'm trying to avoid is I wouldn't want some tenants having a deferral of 90 days and other tenants having a deferral of 6 months, because an argument could be made that for a certain period of time, you had an ordinance in effect where I engaged with my tenant that they had to pay me back within 90 days. And so I did not begin or pursue unlawful detainer actions with the understanding that they would pay it back in 90 days. Then we shouldn't then change paths after they've determined that later. But that's different than extending the sunset date.
Roger that. Okay.
So my point is simply, whatever date you pick for the deferral period, it should remain the same.
Right. And our residential is 90 days, right?
I believe our residential is 180 days.
Oh, it's 180 days.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
I am concerned though that, kind of leaping ahead of what Mayor Martin said. All right, yeah, we have a shelter in place and it ends on May 31st or even June 30th. However, if this comes back and all of a sudden the shelter in place is here in August or September, deferring repayment of rent for 6 months is a lot steeper climb than a month or 2 months. Do you follow what I mean? I mean, you're looking at maybe $300-400 if it's deferred for 2 months, but maybe you're looking at $1,000 a month if it's deferred, for 6 months. Do you follow what I'm saying? No?
I don't follow what you're saying. Only
Okay, yeah,
isn't
let's
it
say their
about
rent's
repaying
5,000.
Isn't it about repaying the rent that they missed?
Yes.
Yeah.
If their rent is $2,000 a month and
Yeah.
it's deferred for 2 months, that's only 4,000. But if it's 6 months, that's $12,000. That would have to be paid in 90 days.
So he's talking about the period of time that we'd be on lockdown. So if it happens to be extended, then your rent isn't getting paid for several months.
Yeah.
And it would be a lot harder to pay back 5 months worth of rent or 2 months worth of rent.
Thank you, Sue.
Yeah, and so if you're having to pay 5 months worth of rent, you're not going to be able to do it in 90 days. Is my point.
Well, I think the timeline's getting mixed up in that analogy. Because what Mike and Sue are saying is that you have to pay 5 months of rent because you deferred it for 5 months versus that being the actual time of payment versus what you're saying, which is, I think what I'm hearing is there's 90 days. Now, maybe I'm just putting words in your mouth, so I should stop talking. But if you have anything else to add, please.
Currently, the ordinance says 90 days after we go back out of the shelter in place, they have to pay back the rent.
Yeah.
But what Mike said was if we're shelter in place for 5 months, they're going to owe an awful lot of rent and may not be able to pay it back in that 90-day period. So it kind of does depend on when the shelter in place ordinance is ended.
Right.
And if I'm not mistaken, I heard Michelle say, City Attorney Kenyon say that if the shelter in place date is extended, she's going to automatically bring this back to us for discussion. And did you say also that you do not recommend extending the time, though, at the point of that conversation?
The deferral period.
That is what she said.
I would prefer to have the deferral period be consistent. We can always extend the effective date or the sunset date for the urgency ordinance. That will happen if the shelter in place orders go beyond May and they're into June. We will be back here and we will be extending the date, but we will only be extending the effective date of this ordinance. So what I would prefer is that you pick a deferral date somewhere between 90 days and 180 days and stick with that date. So if the discussion, and it's a valid discussion that you're having, because you're absolutely right. It is going to be a burden on the tenants and it's going to be a burden on the property owner. Yeah. It just is. And so, that is a difficult policy question that all of you are going to have to deal with, but it works the same for the tenants and it works the same for the property owners.
Can I ask City Attorney and also Mayor Martin, with the calls that you've been on with the other mayors, do we have a read on what the other cities' timelines are? I know the county, the unincorporated counties ordinance is 90 days.
90.
And Mateo has passed their own, I think, or pretty early on. Do we know what that one is? Or South City or any of the others?
I do not know, but my guess is that it is probably similar to the counties, because I know we tried to be consistent. I'm trying to see if I can pull up the San Mateo. ordinance.
I'm also in favor of the consistency with the other cities in the county, because I agree, if you have a group of people together and you're fighting a lawsuit, it's a lot easier than one city fighting a lawsuit.
Yeah, in a way, it's protection. That was a, the county attorney was very clear, and the county manager, that they did not want to take on the liability for all the cities if it could be potentially perceived as a taking by cities. So I sort of stronger together kind of thing, and I'm in favor of 90 days, and then if we extend the shelter in place, they get more time, and I think after that it'll maybe just have to be worked out with landlords and tenants. Hopefully we can all just agree on that we're all suffering. So has there been any additional public comment? Clerk Coffee?
No, I don't see any further comments on this item.
Okay. Mike, you have your hand up. Does anyone else?
I was just, I think everybody's brought up good discussion points, so I think that maybe we just need to move on, and I make a motion to adopt the ordinance as we have stated with the 90 days. And I'm looking for the consideration. I'm looking for the, the motion I need to state. To make
That would be adoption of an urgency ordinance establishing a temporary moratorium on commercial tenant evictions for non-payment of rent for tenants impacted by COVID-19 pandemic in the city of Pacifica.
I make a motion for what Michelle just said.
I'll second.
And just to reiterate, we need a 4/5 vote.
Okay, and so we have a motion by Councilmember O'Neill and a second by Councilmember Vaterlos. Clerk Coffee, or is there any discussion before Clerk Coffee calls the vote by roll call? Nope. Okay.
For item number 8, as moved, Councilmember O'Neill,
Yes.
Councilmember Beer,
Yes.
Councilmember Vaterlaus,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Beckmeyer,
Yes.
Mayor Martin,
Yes.
and that motion passes 5-0.
Okay, great. Thank you, City Attorney, for working on that. Thanks, everyone, for your really good discussion. And let's keep this discussion open. If if whatever you're hearing out there, the more information we have, the better. So thanks, everyone. We will move on to item number 9, which is appointments to the Planning Commission, Beautification Advisory Committee, and Emergency Preparedness and Safety Commission. And Clerk Coffee will be leading this discussion.
Thank you, Mayor Martin. The city recruited applicants for the Planning Commission, the Beautification Advisory Committee, and the Emergency Preparedness and Safety Commission to fill expiring terms and vacancies for 3 vacancies on the Planning Commission, for 1 partial term expiring March of 2022, and 2 full terms to expire March 2024. For 2 vacancies on the Beautification Advisory Committee, 1 partial term expiring March 2022, and 1 full term to expire March 2024. And recruited for 1 vacancy on the Emergency Preparedness and Safety Commission for a partial term expiring October 2021. The opportunities were published in the Pacifica Tribune, the city's website, the city's Connect with Pacifica weekly e-newsletter, and Nextdoor. The city received 6 timely applications for the Planning Commission, 3 timely applications for the Beautification Advisory Committee, and 2 timely applications for the Emergency Preparedness and Safety Commission. Interviews were conducted by the City Council on March 5th, 2020, at City Hall prior to the shelter-in-place order. The 6 timely applicants for the Planning Commission were Jay Crawford, James Godwin, Elizabeth Grow, Samantha Hauser, David Leal, and Pete Shoemaker. The 3 applicants for Beautification Advisory Committee were Ryan Hoffman, Jasmine Sartain, and Daniel Wells. The 2 applicants for the Emergency Preparedness and Safety Commission were Felix Gasanian and Ryan Hoffman. With that, I will turn it over to council for discussion on applicants and to make selections for the for each of the city committees and commissions that are up for appointment.
Okay, Sue Vardalos has her hand raised.
I nominate Samantha Hauser for a full term on the Planning Commission.
Do I have a second?
I will second.
Okay, any discussion? I have another hand up from Pro Tem Beckmeyer and a hand up from Councilmember Beer. So Mayor Pro Tem Beckmeyer?
I had my hand up to second, so I unraised my hand.
Okay, how about Councilmember Beer?
So we're just doing them one at a time? That's my question.
That's a good question. So the probably best way to do this, because we're doing it by roll, is to nominate or have a discussion about one at a time. For Planning Commission, there's 1 partial term and 2 full terms. So I'm gonna take Councilmember Vardalos' lead and do it one at a time. I feel like that is appropriate as long as we all get our discussions in.
Okay,
Agreeable?
agreeable.
Okay. So there was a motion by Councilmember Vardalos and a second by Councilmember O'Neill to nominate Samantha Hauser for 1 full term for the Planning Commission. If there's no discussion, we will have a Mary, do you want to say something?
Nope.
No, okay, your hand's still up. So Clerk Coffee, would you mind calling the vote?
I'm sorry, I was just checking to see if there were any public comments that were received for this item, and
Thank you for the reminder.
I see none at this time. So we'll proceed with the roll call vote for the motion as stated for Samantha Hauser to be appointed for a full term on the Planning Commission. Councilmember O'Neill,
Yes.
Councilmember Beer,
Yes.
Councilmember Vaterlaus,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Beckmeyer,
Yes.
Mayor Martin,
Yes.
and Samantha Hauser is appointed to the Planning Commission full term by a vote of 5-0.
Okay, Councilmember Beer?
I'd like to make a motion to nominate David Leal for the full-time term.
Second.
Pro Tem Beckmeyer, is it discussion or a motion or
It was a second.
okay. Any
Sorry.
discussion? Any public comment? Okay, if there's no public comment,
I see no additional public comment.
okay, we can call.
So I'll proceed to call the roll call vote for the appointment of David Leal to a full term on the Planning Commission. Councilmember O'Neill,
Yes.
Councilmember Beer,
Yes.
Councilmember Vaterlaus,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Beckmeyer,
Yes.
Mayor Martin,
Yes.
and David Leal is appointed to a full term position on Planning Commission by a vote of 5-0.
Great. Okay. So we have 1 partial term. I have a hand up by Councilmember O'Neill.
I nominate James Goodwin for the partial term of the Planning Commission.
A second.
Any discussion? No? Any public comment?
I see no further public comment on this item, so I'll proceed to call the roll call vote for the nomination of James Godwin for the partial term on Planning Commission. Councilmember O'Neill,
Yes.
Councilmember Beer,
Yes.
Councilmember Vaterlaus,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Beckmeyer,
Yes.
Mayor Martin.
No.
And James, the motion to appoint James Godwin to the partial term on Planning Commission passes by a vote of 4-1 with Mayor Martin opposed.
And is there an opportunity for me to make a comment right now? Clerk Coffey? Or City Attorney? Just about the vote or the nomination? City Attorney? Are you on mute?
I am just unmuted. The vote has been taken, so you can make a statement for the minutes, but
Okay,
it will not
great.
change the outcome of the vote.
Understood, understood. Okay, I just would like to make a comment for the minutes. I voted no on I did not nominate James Godwin because I felt that there were many other qualified candidates. And while I do appreciate and James's enthusiasm and encourage him to come back, there have been a lot of really qualified candidates out there. And I thought that there were two others that were more qualified this time around. So keep coming back, and that's all I'll have to say for now. So we will move on to Beautification Advisory Committee. We need one partial and one full term.
I nominate Daniel Wells for the full position.
I second.
Okay, I have a hand up by Mike O'Neill. Do you have a comment, or are you on mute? You're on mute. Mike, can you unmute yourself, or you unraised your hand? Got it. Okay, is there any comment, public comment?
No public comments on this item.
Okay, so you can call roll.
Okay, so for the nomination of Daniel Wells for the full term on the Beautification Advisory Committee, may I have votes from Councilmember O'Neill,
Yes.
Councilmember Beer,
Yes.
Councilmember Vaterlaus,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Beckmeyer,
Yes.
Mayor Martin,
Yes.
and Daniel Wells is appointed to the full term on Beautification Advisory Committee by a vote of 5-0.
Okay. I would like to raise my hand for nomination.
Okay.
I would like to nominate Ryan Hoffman for the partial term for Beautification Advisory.
Second.
I don't see any hands raised. Anyone have any comment, or do we have any public comment on this item? Nope.
No public comments.
Okay. Can you call?
So proceed to call the roll call vote for the appointment of Ryan Hoffman for the partial term on the Beautification Advisory Committee. Councilmember O'Neill,
Yes.
Councilmember Beer,
Yes.
Councilmember Vaterlaus,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Beckmeyer,
Yes.
Mayor Martin,
Yes.
and Ryan Hoffman is appointed to the partial term on the Beautification Advisory Committee by a vote of 5-0.
Great. And then we will move on to Emergency Preparedness and Safety Commission. We need one partial term. And
I nominate Felix.
Oh, I'm
Good.
sorry. Mayor Pro Tem Martin, Mayor Pro Tem's hand is up
sorry.
first. Can
Good. Thanks. Sorry.
That's what I was going to do. So go ahead, Councilmember Vaterlaus.
Well, I spoke out of turn. Sorry. I nominate Felix Gasanian for the term on a shorter term on emergency preparedness.
I second.
Okay, I don't see any other hands raised. Is there any discussion or any public comment?
I see no public comments, so I'll move to the roll call vote for the appointment of Felix Gasanian to the partial term on the Emergency Preparedness and Safety Commission. Councilmember O'Neill,
Yes.
Councilmember Beer,
Yes.
Councilmember Vaterlaus,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Beckmeyer,
Yes.
Mayor Martin,
Yes.
and Felix Gasanian is appointed for the partial term on Emergency Preparedness and Safety Commission by a vote of 5-0.
Great. Okay, well, with that, that concludes our meeting tonight. I want to say thank you to everyone for being so flexible. City Manager, did you have something to add?
No, I was just going to say good night when it's time.
Okay. Okay. I want to adjourn this evening in honor of those suffering right now with this terrible virus and those family members who are unable to be with them at this time, and in honor of the 21 deaths in San Mateo County so far. So be safe, stay together, and stay strong. Hashtag Pacifica Strong. Thank you, everyone. Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Thank you.